And it's not a city on buttons in this. All I'm hanging wrist, banging just nothing in this. Stop the top, like it's high state bumping in this. And you get it right.
Boy, exes never change.
Still doing my thing. Still do it for the block. Let them hang and swing. You don't know what. I put doves on cars when I ride and fly.
Fly.
Thuggin' hot boys, water ride and die.
Die.
Put bricks on block cause I'm cooking cause it's about to hold a running in them cars.
Getting his daughter.
Papa Costell, Sanity Wells, and like see well between the jail.
Boss too. Slung out in the jag, he lost me. Stop. But you know how slow the new Rolls Royce be. Come on, you know how slow the new Rolls Royce be.
Yeah, give me the key to the weed, give me the key to the accent.
Boss B, ever got these for the bus, you could call me. You know I keep the fuck up for hit them all week. Give me the keys to the bubble number, y'all street.
Like he with the weed, but
Listen, I'm a shuffle out in the
James Bond jacket chain and then Macabre.
I'm the same J.
What's happening, y'all? Good morning. John Farmer bringing it to you live this morning on Mint Street Monday. Shout out to the real, man. Hey, look, I know it's bad. I get it. It's bad. It's bad, y'all. It's real bad. But you know what? In the words of my late grandmother, this too shall pass. Appreciate y'all joining me this morning. Shout out to Cigar Music 81. Good morning to you. Nicole Ivory, good morning. Squad Down Productions, good morning. SR 91313, good morning. T-Dubs, or Tubbs, I'm sorry, not T-Dubs. Good morning. Shout out to y'all, man. And joining me already this morning, I got my co-host, Bradford, in the building this morning. Shout out to Bradford. What's going on, brother?
Ready to discuss this debacle that was yesterday. What's going on with you?
Absolute debacle. Yes, indeed. You know, it seems like you take one step forward, in this league, and you take two steps back. And it's not just us, man. That's the thing. I guess if there is a silver lining to be had, it's not just us. There's a lot of teams out there that, Pittsburgh last night, you know what I'm saying? The Falcons, which I absolutely love to watch. I would say that they're more Jekyll and Hyde than anybody, right? We got excuses. Yeah, they didn't have Michael Penix, but like they still had a whole lot of what they needed to be successful, and it didn't really work out for them. But again, I don't care much at all because it's always and forever gonna be smoke with them and anybody else in the division. Y'all know I'm on BS this morning. If I'm already pulling it out, you already know what time it is. I'm telling you, we got takes, we got guests. Special guest gonna be coming through at any point in the show, so we'll break off and speak with him whenever he pops up. I'm sure y'all will really enjoy that and appreciate that. And yes, I love that Polar1235 said it. Can y'all put me included? Can we put some respect on Nine's name, right? Because this team operates. This team is successful. This team will go as he goes. Nothing more, nothing less. Hey, real quick, we got 52 people watching this morning, only 7 likes. Let's get those likes up. I know it's a dreary morning. It's a lot going on. It's storms. Shout out to Cheryl Rosenberg. Good morning to you. Dakota Reeves says, Andy ain't it, man. Not all his fault, but the offense looked awful with Dalton under center. I couldn't agree more. It was, look, Andy Dalton is 37 years old. There was an audio when he fumbled. I thought this was absolutely hilarious, man. And Brad, I don't know if you heard this. And I don't have it queued up, but I would play it if I did because it's really, really funny. But like whenever Andy had kind of pump faked a little bit, which he done a lot of that, we'll talk about that, a little bit later. But he had pump faked and then took off running. And the announcer was like, he's 37 years old. And like, as soon as he did it, he fumbled. I was like, it's almost like he was saying like, no, don't do it. Don't do it, bro. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, oh my gosh, man. But par for the course. You get a guy that is, I don't want to dive too much into that because we got way more to talk about than just that. But I will say this. Brad, you mentioned this yesterday. He did not look comfortable in this offense. And for a veteran guy to look as uncomfortable as he did, it was kind of weird.
I mean, I don't know if it's just, him being cooked completely. But he's looked this way since the preseason.
Mm-hmm.
And yesterday it just came to fruition. I mean, didn't like his first read, didn't like his second read, pump fake, hold the ball. I mean, 7 sacks, I would say, other than the free rushers, that was like 2 times.
Mm-hmm.
And the bad snap by Corbett where he, that's back. He snapped the ball directly into Chuba's arm, and then Andy had to just catch it and, collapse.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he looked like, for the most part, we signed him a couple weeks ago, and that I do not understand.
Yep. Yeah. It was awful, man. It was really, really bad. But I don't think anything was worse than the thing that was the worst, man. That's the run defense. The run defense was literally a no-show, Brad. I saw some things that I thought were, promising. I guess you could say that, as far as, Trevin Wallace at moments looked a lot better, right? But I also saw a lot of friendly fire. I saw a lot of missed tackle, a ton of missed tackles, right? There was one where, Trevin Moore just literally fell over. You know what I'm saying? And not just that. DJ Wanna, man, like the edge setting was not there. And that's where they kept going. They would run in the middle just because the edges, they would exploit that so much that eventually they would just start going through the middle and start picking up and having success as well. But, between DJ, Turk sometimes, Turk not sometimes, it just felt like they were just out-bullied, out-manned when it came to this team. Do you think that any of this could have been more effort, or would you agree that it was just like, hey, we just faced a superior opponent?
Well, at the end of it, yesterday were better coached. It just seemed like a better organizational effort overall.
Mm-hmm.
But I was, we talked about it yesterday. My big thing was they don't have a number 1 wide receiver.
Mm-hmm.
When I watched
Buffalo.
them play Atlanta,
talking about Buffalo.
Yeah.
Okay, I got you.
When I watched a couple weeks ago when they played Atlanta, the big thing, on Monday Night Football was, well, it's really hard. How much do you put on Josh Allen? I mean, he is the, MVP, whatever, but he has no one who, is a clear separator. He has no one who is a defined number 1. And so I'm thinking, why not come out in your base 3-4, where you do have 3 down linemen? We came out in the nickel, basically, the 4-2-5. I saw, Show had to make way too many tackles yesterday. It was basically like he was playing a third linebacker spot. And in the second half, we made some adjustments when we first come out, and we did go with our base, and the running wasn't as bad in the second half. I wouldn't say we stifled it, but, we made them have to pass a little bit more compared to the first half when they were just running free. 160 plus yards before contact, that's insane. And that is, a lot of that is scheme. But then, like you said, there were missed tackles, guys out of place. The super long first James Cook touchdown, when they broke the play down, like you said, Trayvon, he stepped up, got collapsed. Linebackers over pursued, and he just, walked for 70 yards. I mean, it was, So, it was kind of just, like you said, everything just kind of showed that we just weren't what we thought we were. We're, not where we think we're at. We're building, but they just looked completely overmatched yesterday.
Yeah. I kind of thought the same thing, and I posted a tweet and, it got a mixed reaction. I said, despite everything that, had happened yesterday and how bad this looked, we're still 500, and somebody had, responded to that and was like, we should have higher standards than that. And I don't disagree. I agree. We should have higher standards. But at this point in the year, for the last 8 years, it really hasn't been that, for the exception of maybe 2022. Definitely not 2023, because we kind of, went on a 6-6 run with Wilkes. But at this point in the season, to still be 500, Atlanta lost, all is not lost, right? Because obviously there's a hierarchy at the top of the NFC, right? And we can clearly see who those teams are. But the way that I saw what happened last night with Green Bay, the way that, this division is shaping out, anybody can get got. Now, am I saying that this is a year where we will go on any kind of run? No, I'm not saying that, because obviously I don't think that, because it's a young team. They're still learning a lot of things. But then at the same time, anything is possible, right? I think that the biggest clarity piece is what everybody keeps talking about in the chat. Bryce Young, this is Bryce Young's team. I heard Andy Dalton say something. Greg Olsen say something. We'll get back to the run defense in just a second. But he mentioned how he felt like Andy wasn't comfortable. He said that, right? And he mentioned how Bryce he was talking about the contrast of being under center, play action. And then he mentioned because I think it was a play action throw to McMillan, probably a comeback or something like that, and, converted to a first down. And Greg Olsen was like, man, he said, this is an element of Bryce Young's game that he's getting more comfortable with. This is where Andy Dalton lives. And it's like, if you know that, that should be an adjustment. But again, I'm getting a little far ahead of myself. I want to, stick with, what we're talking about. But as far as, this whole situation, the matchup as far as the run is concerned or whatever, I did also see something else that somebody was, asking me. And they were like, is James Cook really this good? And I'll ask you that, Brad, your opinion. Is James Cook that good, or is this just a, one-off, like Carolina always makes people look better than they really are?
James Cook, he's a player. You know what I mean? He is the, straw that stirs the back of their running game. He definitely is a guy who's played in big games. He's got speed. He can catch out of the backfield. But being honest, you could have took a 5th, 6th round draft pick and they could have ran like they ran yesterday with the kind of fits and the kind of holes they were creating.
Yeah, good offensive and amazing offensive line play. And I think something that can't be understated, I saw this stat line whenever the game started. Buffalo, Sean McDermott specifically, 8-0 coming off of a bye, right? So that was a buzzsaw that we were running into, right? But, man, I'll tell you this. Even despite what they had done, to me, the turnovers were the more demoralizing part. We talked about this last night, Brad. You got to settle for something. When it comes to playing an alien like Josh Allen, just like when people played us, you're going to give up something. It's either D'Angelo or Jonathan's going to get off, or you're going to let Cam get off, or Cam's going to throw for 300. You're going to have to live with one of those truths. What do you do to counter it? What you can't do to counter it is turn the football over. Cannot, right? Because if you put them back out there again, then they're going to make you pay for it. This defense, to me, and this is the reason why I'm not like on the whole, I know that, look, those, oh man, if Arrow tricked us, like, nah, I ain't going to go that far. Like, I think that maybe he could have done some things to probably help himself a little bit. Our guest will be able to kind of dive into that a little bit more and let us know what maybe we didn't see versus what we saw. But at the same time, it's like, man, to hold Josh Allen going into the second quarter to like, he was like, what, 60, 40, 50 yards passing, something like that? You know what I'm saying? Mike Jackson broke on the ball, almost had a pick. You gave up some rushing yards, but you had a huge sack when they made a mental mistake. And that's the stuff that I'm talking about that I feel like Carolina's getting better at, and where you can really hang your hat and see like, okay, yeah, we got smoked yesterday. But there's some things that you can see, like historically, if someone else made a mistake, we didn't make them pay for it. You know what I'm saying? Like the offensive lineman, was out of position, went to, kind of move. I think it was, I don't know I can't remember who the guy was, right? But he picked up the edge defender as opposed to picking up the blitz on the linebacker, right? Even though the linebacker was at the line. Maybe he thought, okay, this is just a smoke screen. He going to dump back off into coverage because that's what they used to doing, right? Well, Evero was like, here you go. Gave him a blitz, right? And got the sack on Josh Allen, Trevin Wallace. And so, to me, it's like that kind of stuff is where you like to see where you see the improvement, you see the growth, and you see the changes that are starting to happen, because it's like, man, that's not always the case with us. Like sometimes we get gifted some things and you just, and we blow it either through a penalty or, something that, kind of is a drive killer or whatever. And we capitalize on it. So going into the second quarter, Josh Allen, mind you, right? Holding him to what we held him to and them only having 6 points, that was a win. It was just those turnovers just started killing us.
Oh, definitely. I mean, Andy, at the end of the day, Andy didn't give us a chance to win yesterday. But the thing that, really just demoralized me was just the fact that, it's the KISS formula, keep it simple, stupid. Joe Brady and Sean McDermott basically used our formula, and they did it on, national TV, and they rubbed it in our faces. They ran the ball. They gave it to their playmaker over and over and over.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, Josh Allen, he didn't even throw for 200 yards.
No.
You know what I'm saying? Like, they did what we do to us, and we've seen them doing it, and we had no counter. And then when we saw the counter, we didn't stick with it. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that was the big part of the step back from, the coaching staff perspective, was just the fact that they have a playmaker.
Mm-hmm.
They feed that playmaker and they win. We saw that for 2 weeks. And then, we went back to this, Uber rideshare stuff, where, both people share the bill, and this is kind of the result of it.
Huge result. When we look at their time of possession, they had the ball for 33 minutes. We had it for 26. They had 60 offensive plays to our 59. But the biggest thing, obviously, the total yards, the 410 total yards for them, 244 total yards for us. We're going to get to what I think is going to be, in my opinion, and I saw somebody already at the top of the comments before I even got started, like, man, don't hold back today. I'm not, but like I said, and make sure to smash that like button, because I'm not going to hold back, especially when our guest comes through. That's really when I'm going to ask some tough questions. I'm going to ask some real hard questions, and I'm hoping that this is something that kind of gets out a little bit, because I feel like there is a potential coaching career defining moment for Canales right now. And I'm not so sure that he has total control over the decisions that he's making, right? But then again, he might, because some of the things that he said before kind of lend me to believe that this might be all him. And maybe from up top, they might be like, hey, bro, Like we're gonna start making the decision for you if we have to, right? But we'll get to that. You're not gonna win the game with turnovers the way, like I said, 3 turnovers total. You know what I'm saying? 1 interception, 2 fumbles. This is just a recipe for disaster. And with a team like Buffalo that can get, what we saw happen, like I said, you're gonna have to give up something. Like it's just a recipe for disaster. So my question to you, Brad, is like, is there anything in this game that you saw? I gave a couple of my examples. Is there anything that you saw that you kind of hang your hat on and say, okay, we can build from that?
I mean, we moved the ball minus the turnovers. We were in scoring position several times. And it's like I said, and that's the big part of just the avalanche that was the game yesterday. You know what I'm saying? It was just the fact that you have your 3 turnovers. Also, on top of that, you get no points on about 4 possessions in the red zone or in enemy territory. You know what I mean? And it just, when all of that piled together, plus, Ron Fitzgerald missing 2 field goals. I don't know if the one at the end of the half counted or would have counted if they got it off in time. But, he missed that one as well. Then he missed the extra point. But it was, like I said, when all of those things start just happening over and over and over. I remember the movie The Replacements, where it was like, they were talking about, it's like quicksand. And, when you get in quicksand, no matter how you move, no matter what you do, you continue to sink. And then you place a time limit on that. And at the end of it, clock strikes 0 and you don't have a chance to make any more amends. So when the first drive, Andy takes off running 20-yard line, you're at the 20-yard line, you're only down. You know what I'm saying? Like 3-0. You've got to come away with points there.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
End of the half.
Yes.
Greg Olsen, before he made the not veteran play of holding on to the ball too long, trying to do something, Greg was talking about how he checked out, threw up the 3, that signaled Jatavion Sanders, catch it, boom, run down to the 4-yard line. First and goal.
Yeah.
You got to come away with something there.
Yes.
And if it's a throw out of the back of the end zone and then a field goal, that's still something. And that was just the issue yesterday. I mean, Andy didn't really give us a chance to win. The run defense, and then again, the glaring Rico Chuba decision, which I know we'll get to down the road, but positivity though, it was really hard to pull something from yesterday, especially with the injuries. But like again, we moved the ball, didn't come up with points. We had played some good coverage at times, but then you add on top of the good coverage, you add the missed tackles. So decent coverage, move the ball some. That's about it.
That's all we got. And that brings me, to my next point, man. It might be time, bro. It's time to move on from Andy Dalton. I shared with you earlier, for those who are just joining the show right now, we got 108 people watching between 2 platforms, 23 likes. Make sure to smash that like button. I said earlier to you, I was like, man, on the broadcast, it wasn't Kevin Burkhardt because he's with Brady. It's whoever the guy that they paired with Greg Olsen, which honestly is the GOAT at this point, in my opinion. Well, not the GOAT, but he better than Brady at what he do. But
well, yeah, it's the same how they did.
Yeah. Well, they weren't expecting it, man. I mean, if we just keeping it real, like they didn't. I mean, it was low expectation for Greg, right? Even though Greg is very knowledgeable, Greg is Greg. I don't think they expected for him because it's not just the whole thing. Like even the commercials, and don't get me wrong, I think Brady is good, right? And people forget this, man. I'm a nerd when it comes to some of this broadcast stuff, so a lot of people wouldn't remember this. But historically, man, they don't usually roll out, for the exception of John Madden. And even John Madden, for a very small amount of time, had a third wheel. It looked more like it looks when Dan Orlovsky, because that's what they're doing with him. They're positioning him to be one of the next guys on that, broadcast tree. But like, they usually pair you with somebody else. Like for a long time, it was John Madden and Chris Collinsworth, right? And then John went to NBC to link up with, Al Michaels, and then they put Troy in there, and it was still Troy. It was Troy, Pat Summerall for a very brief moment, and Chris Collinsworth, and then they brought in Joe Buck, and it was those three, and then Chris Collinsworth ended up going to NBC, and then it was just those two, right? But like, they usually don't roll out a former player and put him as like the main color commentator put him as the guest beside the color commentator like right away. It doesn't usually happen like that. It's usually kind of like a stepping stone, and you got someone else in there to kind of fill space where you may struggle. So it's like, man, look, I know it's Brady, but like, it's still like live TV. It's different when you do it live, man. You record something, that's one thing. You do it live, it's a completely different animal, right? And so, and look, I'm doing this on the smallest of levels. You know what I'm saying? Like on the macroest of levels. So I can't imagine what it's like for them. So when they brought in Greg, I mean, it was probably no different than the expectations for somebody like Vilma or Sanchez or, anybody else that they've used over the years. And he turned out to not just be good on the X's and O's, but he was also very charismatic, because even some of the commercials, like when he did the whole, Terry Bradshaw hair situation and, all that kind of stuff, like even the commercials were fire, and people were like, yo, this is dope. So, but you paid Brady all this money, and it's like, it's Tom Brady. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're not going to tell him no, And I don't think they expected him to go back and play for Tampa that last year. And so that was part of it as well. But that being said, it makes me happy because Tom was available to be there for, Greg was available to be there for our game. You know what I'm saying? So that makes me happy that he was actually there. And like I said, you could hear it in the broadcast, man, like a few different times. Greg was like, man, he kept commenting on a couple of different things. One of those things, and I know people in the chat itching because I keep seeing stuff about the running back situation. I promise we're going to get to it. But he kept talking about how Andy felt so much more comfortable whenever Andy was behind center, whenever it was play action, Andy getting to throw the ball down the field. He's like, man, this is where he thrives. Bryce Young a little bit different. Why do we have Andy in zone? Andy Dalton in zone, like in the zone read situation. He ain't going nowhere. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's not running. If he does run, it's a nightmare. We saw that, right? So I think it's just time from a just age perspective. I'd like to see somebody new and fresh. I know people were calling for Hendon Hooker. Personally, I'm going to push back on that. Yeah, from the perspective of just wanting to see something different. Yeah, cool. But like, I would have rather saw Mike White personally, just because I feel like Mike White has way more, in-game experience. Mike White has won some games. You know what I'm saying? Went on a little run at one point or another in the Kyle Allen kind of fashion. Not as successful, but I would like to see something more like that than I would, the Hendon Hooker situation, because I really don't have anything. And I know people will be like, well, you don't know until you know. But there's nothing to me that proves that Hendon Hooker has like pro capability. You know what I'm saying? But what's your thoughts?
Well, I mean, at the end of the game like that, especially in the fourth quarter, it's kind of like, are you trying to build on something just to kind of go out and get that last touchdown with Chuba, that last drive that Andy engineered? Or do you, go to your backup in a blowout loss? If Andy was our number one quarterback, then I think you would go to Hooker there easier. I would still, like I said, I'd like to just see, what the kid could do. I mean, you did think enough of him to bring him in, and then they elevate him on your off the practice squad this week. But well, I was going to go to the Brady. The Brady thing. That's just Fox's answer to. That's the Tony Romo effect. Tony Romo came out and, came out blazing, and CBS, saw this huge jump in ratings, and Fox was like, well, we'll need to go to Brady, because they didn't know that, G-Reg was going to be G-Reg on the live like he is, in the seventh floor rap freestyle. But
third leg G-Reg.
Yeah, I feel like you, at the end of the game with that kind of blowout, I mean, you bring in your backups, and why not go to Hooker? Why not see what you have there? I mean, I know, like I said, you brought in Mike White, but I'm saying the thing is, he's been with your team for 5 or 6 days.
Mm-hmm.
They say he's familiar with the offense, but still, I mean, say a lot of people say in the NFL they just use the same offense, just different, signals and different terminology.
Yes.
But I think, if you're going to go into the game like that, give Hooker a few reps, who cares? See what you got in him. But I do know going forward, we significantly need to upgrade the backup quarterback position.
Mm-hmm.
I've read in a lot of places that it's kind of been kept vanilla with Andy Dalton so as to not, bring in competition for Bryce or to coddle Bryce. But I think it's also, you got to understand, like we were talking about before, in the weeks past, college football is not turning out a lot of pro-ready quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of these older guys are hanging on because there isn't anything better.
Right.
I mean, you look at someone like a Kyle Trask, big guy, big arm, taken late by the Bucks. He's just never developed, and he's out of the league. So
yeah,
I see, your hope is that your backup never gets to play or has to play. But when he does, your hope is also that he can get you through a couple weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And Andy is now 1-6 as a Panthers starter. So we've got to move on. We've got to look for better options.
Agreed, man. That one game, boy, he sold it to us, didn't he? Boy, that man, it looked like it really did look to me like it was going to be, circa 2000, 16, 17 Andy Dalton with the Cincinnati Bengals. And yeah, man, fell off a cliff very, very quickly, and, the whole thing about competition with Bryce, I really hope that that's not a thing. I mean, I think that might just be a skepticism thing from our behalf, but I would really hope that they're not bringing in other, competition or a little bit more stiffer competition because they're afraid of his ego or his fragileness. And then that, that might be an issue. If that is an issue, that's a problem, bro. That's a huge problem because you've got there's some rosters that have 2 quarterbacks that are extremely capable, right? And ain't a lot of them, right? But there's some out there. I think that we're definitely going to draft a guy this year. I do. I don't know who, but there's some, serviceable dudes out there. And some of these guys, man, the thing is that depending on who you draft, and I know somebody had shot me the dislike button, and I'm sure that was about the Hendon Hooker situation. And that's fair. Like I said, maybe I don't know enough about Hendon Hooker to have a really good opinion on it. So cool. But I feel like maybe I'm wrong on this, but could it be the injury situation? Maybe the development, in Detroit. I just feel like if he was as advertised, that I don't think they let him walk out the building. That's just my opinion. Because backup quarterbacks, they don't grow on trees. We see that, obviously. But I do.
At least they get something for him. You know what I mean? Joe Milton was traded for a draft pick. Hendon Hooker was, they let him walk out the door. You know what I mean? Actually ushered him out
what's
the
good,
door.
bro? Go ahead, I'm listening. My bad.
Yeah. But they actually ushered him out the door.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Everybody else gets to use metrics. So when you are stating your opinion, you use the metrics, and the guy preseason looked terrible, struggled. At the end of the preseason, was let go.
Yeah.
So why are we to be like, oh man, if he could just get a chance, just get him in the game, maybe he does this, maybe he does that. But if the same metrics that we use to dismiss so many other players and so many other coaches and so many other people and organizations, you use the same to look at this kid and be like, is it something that's going to help us? Is he going to jump off the page from what we've seen? No.
Crazy. I'm really trying to hold off. So we're trying to get our guest on. Which, if you see me looking down, we're having a little bit of a back and forth technical difficulty at the moment, but we're going to try to work this out because I really want this person. Like, there is nobody, in my opinion, more qualified to speak on this running back situation than him. And so, we're kind of just holding off for a second and seeing if we can get this worked out. If not, then we're going to dive into it, full bore. But in the meantime, man, make sure to smash that like button. We got 130 people watching between two platforms, only 33 likes and a dislike. Man, what's up, man? Y'all want smoke? What's up? I'm down. Say your piece. Is it Alpha? Because I seen you in the chat, bro. What's up? What's happening? You wanted it. You said you wanted to eat the drop. You got it. Let's go. No, I'm just playing. Anyway, yes. So, do you think Bryce plays next week?
Well, in the post interview session, I mean, they said that he almost made it yesterday. They just felt like in certain situations he wouldn't have had the, ability to do all the things that makes him successful, i.e. get out of trouble, move the pocket and some of those things they do with him.
Mm-hmm.
So football-wise, injury-wise, I think he is going to be a go just because of what we saw Sunday. So,
did you see Micah Parsons last night?
I've seen Micah Parsons since he's been in the league. And hey, who do you think? I mean, a hobbled 95%, 98% Bryce is going to be better than the just completely hardened statue that we saw yesterday.
Please don't use hardened and statue in the same sentence again. But go ahead. What were you saying?
Well, that's what happens, man. Oh, man, I was about to definitely use some Paul's words. So, yeah, man, Dalton his escapability is negative, 43 right now. So, I don't think you put the birthday boy out there again on Sunday against Micah Parsons if you value his life.
I think
if you care about him.
I think the same thing about Bryce because one of the biggest things, man, is these injuries, bro. Like, do you think it's possible that these injuries change the scope of the season? We got Brady Christensen has been confirmed to be out for the season. Cade Mays had an ankle situation. Hang on, I've got an article here by, I believe it is, I can't remember the guy's name. It's one of our main guys, but the old guy, Darren Gant, I believe it is. But anyway, looks like, so Damian Lewis was back, yes. Cade Mays left with an ankle injury in the second quarter, was immediately announced as doubtful to return, but he was on the exercise bike. Austin Corbett came in at center, immediately snapped the ball into Chuba Hubbard's arm, more of the same. It got worse. Veteran right tackle Taylor Moton did not return because of a knee injury. He was immediately announced as being out for the rest of the game. And then obviously the worst news of all was Brady Christensen being lost for the season, who was actually playing really well. And that sucks for him because he was about to bust free agency wide open. He was going to get a bag this offseason. And still might. He's still, I don't think it's over for him completely. But with that being said, here's some of our names. This is what it's going to look like. It's going to be Icky, Damian, hopefully, God, please God, Cade Mays at center, Corbett. Like, listen, and respectfully, Austin Corbett at the right guard position, even Austin Corbett at the left guard position, I feel good about that. Him in either one of those guard positions, man, that's a dub, But
yeah, I mean, he was a Super Bowl left guard.
Yes, but at the center position, no, and no, right? And so I feel good about him, coming in and playing the guard position. And then obviously it'll be Yash or, and to be honest with you, Yash in the moments that because this ain't the first time he's had to play right tackle. So, I feel good about that as well. So the one that scares me the most is going to be the center situation, right? Because I feel like we're solid enough at guard to get by. the center situation, like that exchange with Bryce and Cade Mays, if we don't have that, man, you might as well go ahead and pack us up against Green Bay because it's a wrap. Because we can't have a lot of the same stuff going on that we've had, those first couple of games, and we see that against the Packers because it'll be bad. It'll be really bad.
Yeah,
But,
any mishandling of snaps,
Yeah.
any extra seconds it takes to corral the ball,
yeah,
it's all Michael Parsons will need to wreak havoc.
Yeah, and SR913, man, this name is too many numbers, dog. He said we could really use the bye week, but it don't come for another month. And you're right, man. We got like the latest bye week on earth, and I don't know why my comments are showing up so small, but I'll fix that. And then, man, I saw another comment that I wanted to address. It was the Kawhi laugh. Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, I think that.
But yeah, like I said, man, like so from a injury perspective. It don't make me feel good, Brad. I feel nervous about it. I ain't gonna lie. I feel a little nervous about it.
Well, I mean, and the thing with Corbett is, I liken it to Christian, Roseboom on defense. Taking the green dot away allowed him to play more free. When Corbett's the center and he's having to call out protections, not only did he have bad snaps yesterday, he also misplayed a couple assignments and gave up free rushers. So it's to this point this season, it's just been all bad.
Yeah. Hey, real quick.
With him at center.
Yes, with him at center, you're right. It's been terrible. Shout out to my man Brandon P. Shout out to you with the super chat. Like I said, my comments for whatever reason are showing up extremely small, but we'll read it anyway. Says people saying the game would be the same if BY9 was in made me realize that his haters will never concede anything when it comes to his positives. I couldn't agree more. Look, I got to say this because I had a brief blip in the Bryce Young support, right? Bryce Young had 2 turnovers against Arizona. I was like, okay, cool. We can possibly overcome this, right? Bryce Young has 2 turnovers against Miami, and I'm like, all right, bro. Like, yeah, this ain't it. We go down 17, and I'm like, man, might be time to go to a bench. It's been a cool story, you know what I'm saying? And then he starts to make throws like the anticipation throw in the end zone on the fade to Xavier Leggett, and it pisses you off because you're just like, man, how can you go from what you saw him do as far as turnovers were concerned and then see him make a throw that maybe 2 or 3 other quarterbacks in the league can make? And it's like you get that a lot, but that's just what he gonna be. And hopefully you're hoping that he adds on to that, especially the Xavier Leggett pick. We saw some stuff in the game against man, who was that we played at home? Not Miami. It wasn't the Miami game. It was was it? It might have been the Miami game. I'm trying to think. There was a specific throw that I saw. Yeah, it was a Miami game, right? You could see his base changed. When he threw the ball to Xavier Leggett in the Miami game. No, the Miami game is where he threw the pick. I'm sorry. In that game, when you see his heels kind of clicking together and then he throws the ball without a set base, it sails, and you were thinking like, well, if he's got to learn this stuff in real time and this is just who he is as far as the footwork situation is concerned, then it's really not going to change. It's going to be the same, and there's nothing really to look forward to. So, yeah, pack it up. But, man, boy, was I wrong. But I've always been, I think if you've been on this channel long enough, if you've been around long enough, Brandon, like, I've been Team Bryce day one and going to continue to be that. But I'm glad that he provided the kind of clarity that suggests like, hey, this thing could be really, really, really ugly if I'm not a part of it. Could you say that part of that is because of how they built the team around him? Sure. But that's what you would hope would happen with your would-be franchise quarterback. So salute to you for the super chat.
Yeah, I was thinking about that yesterday. Towards the end of the game, they showed a shot of Andy Dalton. He was sitting there talking to Bryce, and Bryce had like a sly grin on his face. And I was like, in my head, I know what I would be thinking.
Yeah.
And it would be, yeah. So all you people that were super excited and, the demise at the starting of my demise at the start of Andy Dalton was greatly exaggerated. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you can't say, that's the thing. You can't say that. You can't be that obtuse and think that Bryce's scrambling ability and ability to, elongate plays wouldn't show up in that game. I mean, there were plays where Dalton, the line stonewalled, Dalton had time, and then he just pulled the ball down, pump fake 2 or 3 times, didn't roll out, didn't try to, change his vantage point, and took sacks. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I just know those plays in particular definitely would have been different because he has his mobility that, one Andy never had, but definitely doesn't have at 37.
Yeah. Nah, you're right. Give me 1 second. I'm just reading some information real quick. Somebody just sent me. Oh. Ah, man. People crazy, bro. People crazy. Man, it's people out here really talking about firing Dave Canales already, man. Like, you know how nuts that sounds? Like, we're 500. Like, don't overreact too much. What would you, go ahead.
The one thing about positives, yesterday there weren't many to pull from it. As you look at the season, up until yesterday, we had a top 10 defense. From a historically, not just Panthers-wise, NFL historically bad defense.
Yes.
Every game this year, we've moved the ball minus turnovers at inopportune times. And that's the thing I can take away, even in his post-game quotes about, the running back situation. He was like, no, I think we're fine. I just feel like we got to execute better. You do have to execute better.
Yeah.
But also, yeah, man, you're going to have to address the running back thing. You know what I'm saying? But I know Dave Canales doesn't expect or plan for Shaq Thompson to be like, they're running the tunnel screen. Check. And then everybody's basically rotate and wait on it. And Dalton not check out of it, even though he heard him calling out the play.
Yeah. Let me get to this super chat real quick, Brad. This is from Willie Smith. He says, what quarterback doesn't throw interceptions? I need context on that, Willie. Are you talking about the conversation that we were having about Bryce, or are you talking about Andy Dalton? Because, you're right. People, and I'm pretty sure you're talking about from the Bryce perspective, right? And, yeah, quarterbacks do throw interceptions. The problem is that, one, there's nothing wrong with examining it and, calling it out and detailing it. And two, it's how you threw it, because no two interceptions are the same. You could throw an interception and, your receiver ran the wrong route. Now, I think this is one thing that Kurt Warner has been on mission this year that I've been seeing him on X a lot, kind of bringing context to some of the things that are happening because, he, as a quarterback and knowing how hard the position is, he's coming out and kind of, shooting the guy some bail. Like, man, y'all don't understand. Like, you see an interception and you think like, man, this guy did this, blah, 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 whatever. Sometimes it is pretty cut and dry. Sometimes you could see it happen. As far as the Bryce interception is concerned, the reason why I bring this one up, and it's not just an interception, if this is the one you're talking about, is because this is more what people were concerned about with him and his footwork. So there is context to that, right? And he kind of, it looked lazy from the footwork perspective when the ball sailed, especially for somebody who's touted as an extremely accurate quarterback, specifically down the middle of the field, right? That's one of his strengths. That's part of the reason why you draft him as an outlier, being his size and doing what he does, right? So pointing that portion out is just like, you wonder, is that more of a, I just got lazy in the moment thing, or is that more like a, hey, this needs to be developed? And we saw the following week when he threw that touchdown to Tedero McMillan, kind of done the pump fake. Look at his base. You can see for yourself. Same thing. Stepped up in the pocket the same way he did. That's something. And like I said, I provided that context as well when I talked about this the last time. He done something that he wasn't doing last year. Stepping up in the pocket, right? The pocket breaks down instead of drifting out right, drifting out left, drifting into a sack, or doing what he does best, which is escape. It's like, nah, I'm going to step up in the pocket because it's there, and then I'm going to let one fly. So, yeah, it sailed on him and he threw a pick because of bad feet, but that's something that he'll eventually get better at, so you can pull a positive away from that. But it's still something that it's part of what John Gruden was grilling him on, and then he convinced John Gruden, like, okay, you do this with your foot this way. It's normally done this way. You may see success with it. If you do, cool. I'm just telling you, like, this is something you may want to consider because people don't normally do it the way you're doing it, you know. But if it works for you, hey, man, if you like it, I love it. So appreciate you for the super chat, Willie. All right, man, 148 watching, 43 likes. Y'all make sure to smash that like button. Thank you for joining me this morning on Mint Street Mondays. As I mentioned before, we do have a special guest that'll be joining us at some point if we can get the technical difficulties handled. I'm looking forward to that because I got questions, concerns about, you know, what we've seen over the last couple of weeks as far as our team is concerned, but more importantly, what we saw yesterday and an issue that I feel like is going to be a issue moving forward. But, Brad... man, you know what? We can circle back around and get to it. I want to get to it with our guest, but I think it's time for us to just go ahead and because people have been talking about this in the chat, you know, and let's go ahead and just get to it, man. They got a decision to make, dog. He got to choose. Dave Canales has to choose. This can't be this whole... Yeah, you know, let's roll this guy out this series, and then let's roll this guy out this series. This can't happen. I want to play this audio. This is from, shout out to Sheena Quick. Sheena Quick had asked Dave Canales his thoughts on what he's going to do moving forward with the running backs and how this whole situation is going to go moving forward. And this is what he had to say. I'm going to listen to that one more time because I don't believe you.
I don't think it's playing. People saying they can't hear it.
They can't hear it? Oh, interesting. Okay. My bad. I thought y'all could hear that. All right. So that was Dave Canales. Hang on. The sound is muted. Let's see. Can you hear it, Brad?
I couldn't hear it, no.
You say you can't hear it? Oh, okay. Well, technical difficulty. That's all. Anyway. All right. My bad. So Dave Canales was essentially saying this. Let me see here. I'm going to make sure that. Anyway, we'll keep moving. I'll say what he said. Dave Canales was telling Sheena Quick, and shout out to Sheena, he likes the way that they're continuing in the way that they're going with the running back situation. You get one series, you take a kickoff return. You get one series, and you take a kickoff return, right? And it's a kind of back and forth situation that way. I'll be honest with you, I don't believe him. Here's why I don't. There is no way that you could see. Where's my stat line? I had it pulled up just a second ago. This was at the midpoint of the game yesterday. Let me see if I can find this. I had this.
You talking about the overall stats?
Not the overall stats, but at halftime, like coming out of half, I think Chuba had 7 carries and his was like in the 20s. Rico had 7 and he was in the 50s, right? They come out, and this is where I got frustrated. I ain't gonna lie. Like I was hot. When Andy Dalton threw the pick, Rico was the running back. It was his series, right? So Andy Dalton throws the pick on the what would be screen. I seen somebody talking about this in the chat, right? They were talking about how Shaq Thompson was talking about he could read our plays. Well, Shaq, being someone that's been on the team for the last 10 years, and then being in the room for the last year and year before, whatever like that. But during the Canales time, of course, right? Young coach, I don't have a lot of checks at the line of scrimmage if I'm the backup quarterback. Yeah, I know what you're doing. I know your tendencies, right? That's what we were hoping we got from Mike White, some people were saying. I don't really see how, but you know, I sort of get it. And then you're playing against Sean McDermott. Like I said, that stat at the beginning of the game, 8-0 coming off of a bye.
7-0 with Josh Allen.
Period. You see what I'm saying? So knowing that being the case, of course they're going to have some times where they kind of walk and play with you, right? Now, I think the insinuation, especially when Icky said what he said, Icky's like, man, it's almost like they was out there doing, running the routes and playing the plays for us, right? People immediately took that and went conspiracy theory lane, especially with all this stuff that's happened with the NBA. Do I think that that's happening in this situation? No, I do not. I don't at all, right? So I ain't even going to go there. But what I will say is that I do believe that a young coach struggles with a counter to something that gets thrown your way. Like I'll give you an example of something I watched over the weekend. I don't know if y'all had a chance. I led my show with Birdman's number one, or the Big Timers number one stunner, right? And I watched the verses. And on a college football night, to have that kind of, turnout and have people tuned in like that was pretty dope, because there was some good games on, man. So I was kind of struggling going back and forth between the game and watching the verses. But like during the verses, you could just tell, like, man, like No Limit. I love No Limit personally. I personally think No Limit won, and I'll tell you this is the reason why. Because like I said, it's a counterpunch. Both of these guys are professional. Baby a professional, Master P a professional. He got all these different talent, all this talent around him. No Limit got records that a lot of this new generation didn't remember. And some of the olders like, oh my gosh, I forgot about that. You know what I'm saying? And they kept hitting you with record after record like that, because Cash Money is such a huge conglomerate. One of the best record labels ever. One of the longest runs in music history, right? It was easy money for them, right? Unless it's not. If you know how to counterpunch, right? So they drop, I think it was Hot Girl. And then out of nowhere, people like, all right, well, we're going to hit you with Chopper Style. And the way the crowd reacted was just like, oh, they got him. How, okay, if they would have had Wayne here, then they were really, they lose going away, right? But when they came back with Chopper Style, it was like, oh, man. So then when you see Andy Dalton looking at Shaq, you could literally see when they showed the play, man, he's literally looking at Shaq, and Shaq is like, oh, they're doing that, screen. And it's like on some Luke Kuechly kind of stuff. And you're just like, oh, man, you already know going in, this play getting ready to be bad. And then Andy gets it, pump fakes it, and still throws the ball. This is where, like, and I saw my boy, I'm not going to take credit for this because Real Ball Watcher said this. Shout out to my man, Mari. Mari was like, look, when you see Bryce Young throw the ball into the dirt sometimes and people be complaining and he does it really fast, it's because he saw that very quick. That's the thing that they were talking about was his superpower when they drafted him. His ability to diagnose things rapid, quick. You know what I'm saying? Throw the ball into the dirt, live to fight another play. Just don't turn it over. If you turn it over because of a sack and you try to make a play, I can live with that a little bit more than you still throwing the ball and making a play when you know that play is dead. The defender's right there in front of you. Like, what are you doing with that? The last time I saw that, P.J. Walker did it. Remember that? We're playing Atlanta. Mm-hmm. P.J. Walker threw it right to the defender. Pick six. You know what I'm saying? Like,
and the time before that, I saw it. Somebody threw it into Julius Pepper's stomach like that. And Julius Peppers is a much better player than what his name of Besna, the defensive end yesterday. But, I mean, dude, even think about this, man. Justin Fields had that opportunity last week and pulled it down and ate a sack.
Yes.
Trayvon Morey jumped the route. He pump faked it, pulled it down, and took the sack from Derek Brown and Nick Scorton. So how does our 37-year-old former Pro Bowl quarterback turn and lay up a softball right into Deuce Smith? Like, it blew my mind. Mm-hmm. He said he thought he could throw it fast enough that dude wouldn't be able to make the play.
Yeah. Insane, And so, but that brings me back to the point at hand. You got to make a choice. Unless the choice ain't yours to make. That's really the issue here. Whose choice is this? Because I think anybody with a brain can look at this situation and say, this is not working. You are taking away opportunities from a guy. Look, Brad, every now and again you catch lightning in a bottle. I've said this before. I'll say it again, right? Why trap it? Why let it go? People get struck by lightning. It might be what? I don't know the statistics. 100-something people a year or something like that. If you live to tell about it, boy, what an interesting story. I remember one time there was a lady that got struck by lightning, and then they did a news story on her, and then there was a glitch, quote unquote, during her interview when she was laying in a hospital bed, and she was like shaking or whatever. And like the news, obviously the anchor started laughing because it was like, dang, she got struck by lightning, and like she's still kind of glitching or whatever. But the fact that you like live to talk about it, man, is incredible, right? Let me tell you a few teams that live to talk about it. The Green Bay Packers, they started a trend, right? Because see, I always talk about what well are you drawing from, right? When you start a trend and you have something, we've been known as linebacker U, right? Trevin Wallace is finally starting to turn the corner. Could it be because you got one part of linebacker U sitting up in the press box calling the game, but he's also serving as a mentor for somebody that he sees has some talent? You got another one that's actually running the team, right, as a general manager, so you draw from that well as well. It had to start somewhere. It didn't matter if it started with somebody you drafted high or if it was a guy like, I don't know, Sam Mills. That's where it started. Sam Mills was not a high draft pick, right? So you drew from that well. Could it be that you have literally found your version of Terrell Davis and Rico Dowdle and you're putting them in the garage? Could it be? But what's the reason? That's the question. The question is, okay, is this, and let me pause for like 2 seconds. We got a super chat and I want to read this real quick because I'm getting in my bag. Shout out to Michael. Michael says, just curious, should we try Derek Brown in a different position to help him out? I don't know. I mean, they kind of move him around the line already. He plays a little bit of, defensive end, a little bit of, tackle or whatever. But I mean, I would say no. And Brad, you probably speak to this a little better than I can. I personally would say no, only because I'm not going to allow one game to determine, to make me make those types of changes. Because early in that game, as I mentioned, one thing Dave Canales said that was right, the turnovers do kill you, right? And to the point, even though we had given up 80 rushing yards in the first quarter, we still had them held to 6 points. A Josh Allen-led, the MVP of the league-led team, held to 6 points. So that can't be understated. So that being said, no, I probably wouldn't. Because if the offense is scoring points, I think this game goes a whole lot different if when you're in the red zone and you score a touchdown there going into the half, we probably still lose, but it doesn't look as bad. But you say to that what, Brad?
I mean, we saw in the Jets game specifically, I mean, they'll move Derek Brown to, defensive end, almost outside linebacker, leverage type. And, he can stonewall, make some plays, stop teams from getting outside. Mm-hmm. They've done that in the past. They move him around, especially in the base 3-4. So I think yesterday was more so an anomaly of just taking bad angles, also having to be on the field all the time. I mean, to what we're talking about with, the Rico and the, Chuba situation, when you're running the ball and your defense gets to rest, all that's going to look different anyway. But they definitely play him in a different number of positions, a different number of leverages, and stunts to get him active already. So, I don't think you could move him around any much more.
Agree with that. But, Michael, appreciate the chat, man. So, all right, so back to what we were talking about. So the real question starts to get asked, man, what's real and what's not? There's a lot of people arguing in the chats right now, and that's okay. I love it, right? Some people are suggesting that Dave Canales is being soft. Other people are suggesting that, I have a different approach on this because I think that Dave Canales does have some control over it, but I don't think he has full control. What do I mean by that? I feel like that this is just as much an issue with what you're faced with if Rico is successful as it is him not getting the opportunity because of Chuba and what you paid him, right? it does make me wonder if the Brants and Daves of the world, and I look, this is tinfoil hat conspiracy theory brain, y'all. So don't take this as me, I done talked to somebody. And no. First of all, I ain't that connected, right? So I don't even want to put that out there as if I am. But I'm just trying to look at this from different angles outside of what is the obvious, right? Which the obvious, let's just call it out loud. The obvious is it is incompetence. The obvious is that it's some sucker-ish. The obvious is that you have somebody who is doing something that very few people in the league have done in a couple of games. How do you have a guy that literally is still a top 10 rushing yards leader and have him on the bench and he ran one play in the second half? What are we doing? I do not get it. I don't understand it. And there is nothing you can say to dress it up to make us look at it any different than the way we see it. Because everybody sees it. It's not just us. Listen to Greg yesterday on the call. Greg saying multiple times, man, they got to figure this situation out. We get smoked at the end of the game. Greg circles back around to it. Why is he doing that? Because Greg don't want to come unglued like we are. Because Greg's a former Panther. You can look up in the stands and see Luke Kuechly in the box like this. Why is he doing that? Is he frustrated? No, he's frustrated because he understands what many other people understand. What Rico's doing is not common. And for whatever reason, you getting the shackles put on you. Brad, when Andy, I seen this last week. I'm going to tell you how the favoritism works. Rico was getting off last week, and they still brought Chuba in during the drive that Rico was playing last week. Whether it was for a breather or whatever, he was still present. So on the drive that I'm on, my man throw a pick, and then Rico get to go sit down. Chuba come back out there because, hey man, guess what? During your series, didn't work out. Sorry. You know what this reminds me of? They didn't earn another series. Remember that in the preseason?
Yeah, Houston.
Man, what? I'm gonna end up having a stroke in here, Brad.
It's the punitive punishment nonsense. Yeah, definitely. But I mean, dude, going all the way back to what you were talking about with Shaq Thompson calling out plays, you know, people are talking about maybe it's the betting line and all. No. Here's how it works. Shaq Thompson was a Carolina Panther for years. One of those years, half the year he was hurt, and the other half he was on the sideline watching Dave Canales' offense unfold. He understands the checks. He understands the play calls. He understands the formations. Do you know how you counter that? You run directly at the linebacker who is over 30 years old coming off an Achilles tear and punch him straight in the mouth like Atlanta did with Bijan Robinson. And though Bijan is a do-it-all, super speedy, do everything back, he's not a power rusher like Rico. I guarantee you're running the ball at 5 to 7 yards a clip straight at Shaq. You can run your tunnel screen because Shaq's going to be so off balance that he doesn't know what's coming next.
It's not as if you've not seen this before. Dave Canales, you were a wide receivers coach on a team that drafted a quarterback in the 3rd round. One that many people thought was too undersized to play the position. You know, NC State. Then he goes to play baseball. Then he goes to Wisconsin. You know, the one that Richard Sherman and all these guys love to hate on, even though they were 7-9 2 years in a row before he showed up. Even though the Legion of Boom was getting torched by Green Bay, and then you got a lucky special teams play, and he threw a bomb to Marshawn Lynch on the boundary, threw a bomb to Jermaine Kearse to walk it off and send you back to your 2nd Super Bowl, right? Mm-hmm. Not taking away from anything that LOB done, right? But, hey, you saw all this. You saw it all play out in real time. You were right there. Not to mention, yes, Marshawn Lynch getting us in position to score at the end of the game. But, look, Tom Brady. Hey, y'all was up. Tom Brady went nuts against the Legion of Boom in the second half. So it's easy to shift that blame. But you saw it. You were right there. You saw them put ink to paper when they signed Matt Flynn. Matt Flynn, who had 6 touchdowns in a game against the Bears and got a bag out of it as a result. You know what else he got? Pine, the bench. Why? Because you had someone else show up and do something that they hadn't seen, something they had been waiting for. And your mentor thought enough of that guy to say, you know what? Hey, I know y'all went and paid. And look, these are not easy conversations to have. I said this last week, Brad. The difference between this guy and the great guys is decisions. It's your decision making. This is not an easy conversation to have. We get it. But it's one that is necessary. Drew Bledsoe played in a Super Bowl against the Green Bay Packers. Bill Belichick comes in, he gets hurt, Tom Brady takes over, and the rest is history. How do we know that this couldn't be the same thing? I understand Rico Dowdle was in the league for 4 years prior to getting here, but his last season, how do we know that just because he was sitting behind Tony Pollard and Zeke Elliott for all those years that he wasn't this all along? We don't know. But everything that I have, it's like when somebody had disliked the Hendon Hooker situation earlier. What have you shown me that shows to me a burden of proof? I got examples. This ain't something that bro was just doing. Who saw it better than us last year? Because we saw it. That's the whole reason you went out and got him. Because of what he did to you. And then he comes here and it's like, Coach, not only will I do it for you, but I'll do it for you.
You know what I'm saying? That's right.
And you put him on the bench. Rico Dowdle had more yards than Chuba Hubbard had in more carries. And he was on the bench for the entirety, minus 1 carry of the second half. If your coaching career is going to have a stamp on top of it, if you don't figure this out, this will be it. Because if he goes anywhere else and has success, not in Carolina, this will follow you for the entirety of your career. Let me read these super chats. Shout out to Nervash. Nervash with the $5 super chat. He says, I had fans from other teams yesterday ask me multiple times why we weren't running Dowdle. Mark Schlereth last game was very upset we didn't run Dowdle. Hey, man, Brad, I told you, man, look, this is one of the reasons I love that Greg Olsen had the opportunity. Tom Brady probably wouldn't care. Like, I'm not saying he wouldn't be paying attention or anything like that to the Carolina Panthers because he has to for his job, right? But I don't know that he gives the same kind of commentary that back-to-back situations with Mark Schlereth and Greg Olsen gave, right? I told you, multiple times during the game, Greg Olsen kept running it back. They're going to have to figure out the balance. What was he really saying? Let Rico cook. That's what he was saying. You might not have wanted to hear it, but that's exactly what he was saying. I think we had another super chat here. Let's see, who's this from? Another one from Nervash. Appreciate you, man. Spending the rent money. We love it. You can't have a static plan for the running backs that you can't adjust from. Even the Lions with the 2-back system run Gibbs to death when he's on fire. Thank you. I love that. Go back and look at the Deontay Foreman and Chuba Hubbard situation from a couple of years ago and tell me who was the dominant back. I can tell you who wasn't. 30. And I got love for 30. See, people think, like, we got to stop this, man. Like, if you have commentary about somebody, not necessarily critiquing them, but see somebody else do something a little bit better than what you see from this person, that's not hating, man. Y'all got to stop that. People keep talking about, oh, man, y'all hating on Chuba. Y'all hating. Look at what he's done for us. Okay. But is this league not a what you've done for me lately? If it wasn't, then one would still be behind center. He would have died on the shield for us because he wanted to. But because of what you've done for me lately, he didn't get the opportunity. We have seen this movie play out time and time again. Was Jim Harbaugh splitting reps between Alex Smith and Colin Kaepernick? Heck no. When Colin Kaepernick came out in his opportunity, why did they draft him in the first place? I need some juice on this offense. He's got a big arm and he can run. And he did those two things really well against the Saints. We didn't see Alex Smith again until he went to Washington. Sometimes you have to make these hard decisions. And this is a guy that literally has been, it's almost the same situation. I've been here the entire time. I've been here through all this bad coaching. You know what I'm saying? We finally turn it around. We make an NFC championship game. And then we lose one because of a muff punt. Could have possibly won the Super Bowl that year. And then the following year, I get hurt. Man, you do me like this? Who is the one person that Alex Smith does not talk bad about? Jim Harbaugh. Because he understood it. I mean, the gig is the gig. I get it. You got to make hard decisions. The W in the win column means more than anything else. Man, we could have possibly traded blows yesterday. It could have been an epic gladiator battle. Rico 12 for 54. Man, they could have literally been doing this all game long. Okay, I got you. You gonna rush for 50? Okay, bet. Now it's my turn. You know what I'm saying? And you just keep going with that hot hand. Guess who else gonna get excited about it? The people on the field, because they see it too. We might sit here and think,
definitely.
Yeah. Oh yeah. They see it too. We might sit here and think, oh yeah, man, like cool, Chuba, that's my guy. Blah blah. Hey, look, when it come down to it, bro, production is production. Man, you see what that dude doing? And he cool. And he got a piercing in his face. Man, this little nigga crazy, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like, let him cook. Forgive my language.
Well, and dude, here's the caveat that everyone goes back to, where they're just like, well, I mean, you know, is it because of the contract? Thanks to the genius of Brant Tillis, this is not a contract that could hamper us. If we have to get out from under the Chuba contract, we will be fine. We can get out of that. The negligent money that we would lose would not be something that could make a difference at any other spot. And we could pay Rico if that's the end game.
Yes.
But for the immediate future, we need to win. Al Davis said it best. You know what I'm saying? Just win, baby, win. Like, that's what I expected yesterday. When I talked to my neighbor, who's a transplant Bills fan, who went to the game yesterday, when I talked to him on Thursday, that's what I was talking to him about. You guys have nothing at receiver. He was like, we have nothing at receiver. We give up all of this stuff in the run game. We run a 4-2-5. We saw it on Rico's long run. If it wouldn't have been for their safety waking up and tackling him, 30 yards down the field, that's a 50, 60-yard run touchdown. You know what I'm saying? Like, And then the biggest part of it that pissed me off was in the second half on their, strict series for series rotation, Rico comes in, Andy fumbles the ball away to the other team, Rico makes the tackle, and then you come back out and it's Chuba again.
Ridiculous.
It's ridiculous, man. And like, for all the positivity that we've garnered in this, little 3-game win streak we had, and I don't want to mention myself, but in this 3-game win streak we had, was that Canales was opening up the playbook. Players were getting to do what players were supposed to do. Mm-hmm. Everybody was buying in. But it's like Mark Schlereth said, it's like you're saying, when you see someone who was out there playing above their head, who was blossoming in front of everybody, who was a hard worker, who had been cast away, undrafted free agent, you play for that guy.
Yes.
Also, being on teams, you know what it is. And that is, you cannot underwrite or undersell the fact that Rico not getting the play and the offense all of a sudden becoming super stagnant, man, people feel that.
Yes.
And that's why, it hasn't been hard to finish games, but like I told you yesterday, it was hard to finish that last half of the third quarter and the fourth quarter because they were done.
Yeah.
They were finished.
Yeah.
And that was because, in no small way, Rico didn't get to even attempt to eat in the second half. Like I said, I will never forget watching the Cowboys game and seeing Diggs their cornerback, Trayvon Diggs, with his hands on his hips, bent over, looking like he was about to vomit because we were running it down their throat over and over and they couldn't stop it.
Mm-hmm.
Yesterday, James Cook said at the end of the game he felt like he could play again because he hadn't been touched. And that's because they were doing to our defense what we did to 2 other teams this year.
You know how insane that is?
I don't understand it. I don't get it.
Do you know how insane what you just said is? To suggest that a player that just done what he just done in this game felt like he could still keep going. You gotta know that, like, I'm sorry, man. I think that the thing that is the most egregious about this, not the most egregious, the thing that's the most disheartening, let me just say that. I do feel for Chuba Hubbard. I really do. Because these can't be, like, look, it was proof this week. If you guys don't know, I had shared a short talking about how it was important. It was someone had commented, I think it was Oso Carolina, on our last Mint Street Mondays. And I had made a short talking about how, it's extremely important to win the games like you won against the Jets. I mean, we saw what the Jets did against the Bengals yesterday. The Bengals with their quarterback, that's a playoff team. You know what I'm saying? They didn't make it last year, but, they improved. So it's a much better situation than it's not. Let's just say that. And they have a better quarterback situation than Joe Flacco. And it was a high-scoring game. So for us to hold them to, what was it, 3 points? 3 or 6 or something like that, right? And that, yeah, I mean, you have to learn how to win those type of games. But Princely Umamielen liked the post, or whatever. And I thought that was pretty cool. But it lets me know that they're watching, right? So, yeah, Chuba's probably hearing a lot of what's going on, the chatter out here on the streets about, like, and making him look crazy because he, like, and he got people riding for him as well. Hey, look, you got us riding for you, dog. We riding for you. One Carolina show, we riding for Chuba, right? But at the same time, it is extremely difficult to see what you're seeing from this young man every time he touches the ball. Because it's not just, it would be easy to get hung up on the 200-yard performances in back-to-back games, yards from scrimmage. It would be easy to do that. That's not what we're getting hung up on. We're getting hung up on the fact that when he touches the ball, the offense looks completely different. Night and day.
Yeah.
Night and day. Got another super chat. Shout out to you guys with the super chat today. Willie Smith says it's a good problem to have, but it has to be managed. Don't forget Brooks comes back next year. Well, yes, but at the same time, you don't know what you're getting from him. Who knows what Brooks is going to look like next year? I guess from a hopeful perspective, I'll say this. I'll say that, man, watching Jonathan Taylor, like certain running backs in college, man, like it's, you don't see this every year. You're seeing, I think the kid's name's Dylan Sampson from Notre Dame. He can break off a few runs or whatever like that. But, Brooks is one of them ones. He's in that line of the McFaddens and the, he's not like as hard a runner as maybe a McFadden or Adrian Peterson, but he's just one of those guys in college that stood out in a very tough conference, mind you, when they moved to the SEC. So it's not like he did this against slumps. You know what I'm saying? So seeing Jonathan Brooks and even the small sample size we got of him, and look, there's 2 questions that I have that it makes you wonder. This is a great situation. Now, could you say that because of where he was drafted, because this is what I will say when you talk about the managing of this thing, and this is part of where I will give Dave Canales a little bit of grace and put on the tinfoil hat to suggest that maybe he's not the one that's quarterbacking this thing. Maybe it's the guys upstairs saying, hey, look, you don't understand what kind of situation we may be faced with next year. We get Brooks back, right? He's a guy that we picked in the 2nd round. We got to justify that pick. We paid Chuba Hubbard. That contract has to be justified. And now you let this AC Reynolds head dude go out here and rush for almost, because, I mean, look, Rico is on pace. If Rico continues to play, he's going for over 1,300 yards, maybe more, right? You are not letting that walk out of the building if you're Dan Morgan. Not a chance, right? Because you know it's sustainable. And that's the one thing that can turn this team into a playoff contender is if you can run the ball really well. But you also know that he's the type of running back, I need to see it happening, read and react. I need to have a feel for the game just like the quarterback or anybody else. Every running back should be able to do that, but Rico does that, right? That's why he made the suggestion for the toss play, right? On the zone toss play or whatever. And so, yeah, you're going to bring that back in the building. Somebody got to get clipped. Who's it going to be? You know what I'm saying? Could it be tinfoil hat? Am I advocating for this? No. So before y'all start turning up in the chat or, shooting at me or tomato in the chat or whatever like that, I'm just saying, could it be that this whole, you go, I go, you go, I go is a November 4th ploy? I think that's the trade deadline. Maybe they're making some decisions. Hey, you see what he keep doing every time he touch the ball. You see it. Yeah, I know, man, but look, Dave, I understand. I get it. But this kid's different. This could change the way that you're looked at as a coach. These political advisors, man, they give these guys little, hey man, if you go out here and say this or this about this person, or you show up at this event and take some pictures, man, when it's time for the votes, it's gonna look good in your favor. I'm standing behind the scenes. Look, nobody knows who I am. Brant Tillis, hey man, I get it. The money situation is the money situation, but man, look what he's doing. You know what I'm saying? It's hard to make a decision. These are very, very tough decisions to make. But again, as I said, what separates the good from the great is the ability to do just that. Make a decision. He is going to have to choose. You are not going to be able to continue going in this direction. It will sacrifice you games. If you do this against Green Bay, it'll be another ugly, horrible loss. If you want to neutralize Micah Parsons, it has to be power running game. You got some decisions to make, dog. You really do. Shout out to the super chat.
Well, and that's the thing. You have a gluttony of riches at running back. I mean, that's what happens. Teams do that, and they move on from players. Other teams right now, I mean, there are 7 teams right now that need a running back. I saw online, a couple places online that, maybe the team's looking to trade Rico. You want to become the laughing stock, which we have been for the past 6 years or so, with all the different coaches and all, the different machinations of, the organization being picked over and decisions being, fact that we didn't trade Brian Burns when not St. Louis, when the Rams were offering 2 firsts and then ended up only getting the 2nd and the 5th.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? If you trade Rico Dowdle in the next couple of weeks, you talking about turning the light off, putting the fire out for a gigantic percentage of your fan base. That's what you're going to do. And I feel like if this is what's going on, if there are people in the background that are saying these carries even, do this running back platoon bullshit, like, man, how are we as fans to look at it to think that we're ever going to be any good?
Well, then that's when you would have to start asking different questions, because now the questions are no longer. I threw out this word one time years ago when I first started this podcast. Totalitarianism, because that's what it would reek of. If what you say comes to fruition based on production, then that would tell you that there's somebody making decisions, somebody pushing buttons who doesn't necessarily have a strong hold on. Let me make sure I'm saying this right. It's more, this is my toy, and I'm going to do with it what I choose, period. Do I think that's going on? No, I don't. I think that David Tepper has learned from a series of mistakes, and David Tepper has spent the majority of his time, for as much as we do shoot at him, and we done shot at him, he spends the majority of his time doing things that people with money, that many of us think that people with tons of money should do. And really, we should do on our levels as well. He is extremely philanthropic, right? And just recently, I just saw something recently where they made a huge donation towards another philanthropic venture. And that's kind of been his hallmark since he's been here. So salute to David Tepper and Nicole Tepper for that. I think that that's where his time is most spent. I don't think that he's locked in. Like, yeah, you saw him on the sideline. I think he was on the sideline for this game. Nothing wrong with that. You know, this is my team. I can be here. I can be on the sideline, you know, all that kind of stuff. But again, if you're telling me that they make that kind of decision with Rico at the trade deadline, a guy like Dan Morgan that understands this, Dan Morgan who came off the heels of another great linebacker who wasn't a drafted guy, who rose from the ranks in Sam Mills, and you name your team slogan after something that he said, and he's in the Hall of Fame, and you claim him as a Hall of Famer, even though you can make an argument that and he has a statue, but he was more of a Saint than a Panther. You know what I'm saying? And you're going to trade somebody that shows you this high level of talent, then yes, I would say that there's somebody else pushing buttons. This will remind me of Dal Loggins telling Johnny Manziel, or excuse me, them texting back and forth and Johnny saying to Dal Loggins, let's go wreck the league. And then they go tell Jimmy Haslam that. And then he gets a chubby. And he's like, you know what? Let's go draft him. Let's draft him 22nd overall. Let's do it. And it's like, wait, what? And then a couple of years, look, and then they were faced with a similar situation, Brad. A couple of years later, Mike Pettin had them boys competitive. They were 7-5 and in the middle of a quarterback battle. Brian Hoyer had them winning games, and they're in the middle of a quarterback battle because the owner wants to see his prized possession out there playing games. They're trying to tell him, man, this dude is not showing up to practice hardly. This dude high. He out partying. He flying to Vegas. I don't care. All right. Then Mike Pettin ended up getting fired because they ended up losing out in the middle of a potential playoff run. It took a lot from them to get there, but they were playing good football. Could we be faced with a similar situation? Could it be like, hey, man, I love this kid Chuba. We love Chuba. So do we. But look at what Rico's doing.
Well, man, I like that point you made, about Penn eventually losing his job. Looking at the header, Canales must choose, dude. If he makes the wrong decision or continues to make the wrong decision here, like this could cost him his job. It's definitely costing him with the fan base already. And, a lot of fan bases dislike their coach or whatever, but specifically, this would go against everything. And that's the thing. We've seen them put their foot in their mouths. We've seen them, renege on certain things, but they have always said, we want to be physical.
Mm-hmm.
We want to run the ball.
Yes.
We want to be physically imposing.
Yes.
What did Dan Morgan say? I want dogs.
Preach.
D-A-W-G,
Preach.
dogs.
Let's go.
I've seen it parroted over and over on message boards, on Twitter. Dog. He not a dog. He got that dog in him. He was looking in the mirror, and it was a Rottweiler looking back because he had that dog in him.
Ooh.
Rico got that dog in him. And if you were to do any other thing than let the big dog eat, then you deserve to lose your job.
Period.
And if that's what it is, that's what it is. But I mean, I've seen this before. We've all seen this before. You sign a player, another player comes in and outperforms him. And one thing I like that Scott said from the Charlotte Observer, also, man, I don't feel like Chuba's all the way back from his calf injury.
I would agree with that too. Yeah.
He doesn't look fast. He doesn't look explosive. He looks like he can't read the plays. Other than that screen pass where he outran the lineman, I've not seen him show any burst of speed. I really am at a conundrum. Like, I don't understand what this is because I've never seen it on this level before. Like we were saying last night, I've seen it in high school where you've got a junior who plays well because the senior's hurt, or a sophomore who plays well when the senior gets hurt, and the senior comes back and he plays all the time because he's a senior, and it doesn't matter because you got this kid for 2 more years.
Right.
I've never seen this on the collegiate or NFL level. So I mean, like I said, I understand Chuba's worked hard. He's been a part of that. But Chuba was also part of the losing culture we had here.
Yeah.
Not in the, not all on him. I'm not going to put that all on his neck. But, like, he was part of that culture. Rico can be part of this new culture that you're trying to set. Where what did he say? I want guys to empty the tank. I want guys to empty the tank, and then we'll put someone in for them.
You just said
Rico
something.
Dowdle, every time he touches the ball, he's emptying the tank.
Yes.
I mean, you know what I'm saying? The Kyle Brandt thing on NFL Network, angry runner, angry rushing. That's Rico.
Yeah.
Every play looks like
Every
he
time.
is running for his life.
Yes.
And that guy's, I mean, it's a good thing he's not A.J. Brown. Because if he was, he'd be all over social media right now talking about how he's not being used, how he's not being used effectively, what the hell's going on, when is he going to get his comeuppance? You know what I'm saying?
Well, and you know, here's another angle. You said a lot of amazing stuff there too, by the way. Here's another angle to this, because I've been seeing, you know, a little bit of this in the chat, is people's fear of like, well, man, what if he gets paid? You know what I'm saying? And then, you know, kind of slacks off. That, I mean, look, that's a risk you take. If that's your posture, then why did you sign him in the first place? You signed Rico for a reason. It wasn't for no reason. It wasn't just to fill a spot. You could have done that with anybody. You could have done that. I mean, if it's just to be a filler, I just want you to think about this for a second. For people like Double O Kane in the chat saying, what are we talking about? So I'm going to put you on blast. So I'll tell you. If they thought, and I'm not sure what if this is your angle, if you're talking about like what we're talking about as far as Chuba is concerned, but let me tell you how much the team thought about him, even though as great as he's been, right? They thought about Chuba so much, and as great as he's been, they brought in Deontay Foreman, and they were a two-headed monster. He got the lion's share of the carries. They thought about Chuba so much and what he done after his 1,000-yard season, they went out and drafted another running back. They thought about Chuba so much that after the running back that they drafted got hurt, they drafted another running back out of the SEC named Trevor Etienne. They thought so much about Chuba Hubbard that they went out and got Rico Dowdle, who served them last year when he came to the bank. So y'all can keep telling me all this stuff about what they feel about Chuba and all this other kind of, you know, crazy stuff, but they telling you without telling you. And now we're facing this situation when you finally got something that you've been looking for, and now you're trying to make different decisions. So that's what we're talking about. Respectfully.
Well, and the fact that listen, we all understand this is not the golden era of the running back. You know, in years past, especially while we were growing up, you know, the mid-'90s, Rico would have been a star. You know what I'm saying? Like, it would have been like the Panthers go as Rico goes, which is basically what it's looking like anyway. I mean, you know, they talk about him being the best player on the field, especially in the Cowboys game. So we get that. And a lot of people were angry, you know what I'm saying, when we paid Chuba last year anyway. They were like, man, what are you doing? You don't pay these running backs these contracts. You draft, you continue to add, and you move on. And there is truth to that. I mean, because Rico's playing on like a $2.4, $2.8 something million contract compared to Chuba's $8 million a year.
Yeah.
But it's not. That's like I said. I do want to, you know, give a shout out to Brant Tills, because like that, it's not an albatross of a contract to where we can't move on.
Yes.
It'll be a thing where it's like, man, we do got to eat some money. If we don't find a trade partner, if we didn't find a trade partner, we would have to eat some money. But it's not the kind of thing that can hamper your organization. It's just like the Matt Flynn thing. A guy you brought in, or a guy you have drafted, a guy you're looking at, a guy you have confidence in, a guy you're excited about, a guy that has gone to battle, and then someone just comes in and plays markedly better, and you have to move on. You got to.
Yeah.
And even if it's like not moving on for this whole season, you got this dude on contract for less than $3 million. Put Booby in. You know what I'm saying?
Let me do this for you, Coach.
That big old brother he ain't gonna break. You know what I'm saying?
You know that ain't what she really said.
I know, man. I can't say that on TV. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I had to reframe it in my mind about 6 times.
Yeah, that ain't what she really said.
Hey.
Shout out to my man Jay Issue, man. Jay Issue says, so let Chuba get 86% of the snaps since being back, but decline your team success by sitting your lead runner for the man that got paid. So we have favoritism in Carolina. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just as Cordell Patterson said it in that, terrible Verizon commercial, you're that easy. You know what I'm
Hey,
saying?
let
Like,
me hold on, because Double O Kane, like, I feel like now we got a little back and forth going. And salute to you, Double O Kane. I don't know who you are, but salute to you. We says we losing O linemen left and right, and y'all talking about a running back problem. We don't have face green. I guess he put some kind of emoji in there, whatever. But hey, bro, look, your man had 54 yards. Your other man had what, 30? I mean, that was with and without issues on the offensive line. We've had offensive linemen hurt. Robert Hunt ain't playing. Did that stop Chuba Hubbard from running? Rico Dowdle for rushing for more than 200 yards from scrimmage, or having more than 200 yards from scrimmage back-to-back games? Robert Hunt's your best offensive lineman. So what does the injury situation have to do with anything?
yeah, because the starter is looking like, if it's going to be at right guard, is Austin Corbett, who is a Super Bowl caliber guard. Cade Mays, if he's healthy, which just looked like he said he just tweaked his ankles, he said it's nothing serious.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we'll have to see injury reports during the week. And then was Nina not playing during one of those Rico rushing games where he, shot out of a cannon and took over the league for a week? So, I mean, I think that is completely secondary because you do have the depth. Yeah, it is terrible, and we do have a serious rash of injuries. It looks like the offensive line is jinxed, but you still have Super Bowl caliber players to fill in.
Yeah.
So, yes, that's why that's taken a back seat, and that's why the negativity of let's not even talk about this running back situation because of our O-line injuries is not warranted.
Well, I'll tell you this. You better make a decision, like I said, because this is what you got coming. You got the third-ranked defense in the league coming. And that same guy who seemingly every time he sees Bryce Young, who he really likes, by the way, according to him, hits Bryce and the ball comes out of his hand like Sonic rings. Every time. So you better figure out how to neutralize him. How do you do it? A little 12 or 13 personnel and a power running game. That's how you do it. If you don't, then hey, it is what it is. So
well, I saw a really good post on a message board, and it said, how do the other players feel about this, kind of shackling of Rico Dowdle? It's one of those things where it's like, you see a guy and the effort he gives, and then actually breaking NFL records back-to-back weeks. Like I said, he's on pace with his limited carries, with the other games tied in. I mean, he's still on pace for 1,300 yards.
mm-hmm.
If I'm a guy like a Boogie Basham, you know what I mean? An undrafted guy who's coming in, making a few plays on defense. If I'm a Lathan Ransom or someone who's a backup now who's making plays here and there, if you see a guy who sets the world on fire get the shackles put back on him and sent back to the bench, man, like, how does that make you feel?
I'm sure I mean, and it's not even just him and how he feels. It's the people around him, because
right.
Yeah, they know. I mean, and it's not just like, look, this is one thing we're underselling. And this is what I'm trying to talk about. Like, look, Double O, I get it. The injuries from yesterday, we got it. But the problem is not just what, it's also like, look, let me tell you what trust factor looks like. Andy Dalton got Chuba Hubbard wide open in the flat, and he double clutching. Wide open, right? But historically, if you've been on the jugs machine, and that's what I'm seeing from you all the time, what does that tell me? You got an issue catching the ball. They probably see this more in practice than they do on the field. Why would you not even look that direction? He was standing over there literally like just standing there at one point. It was just like, yo, dog, you can hit him right here.
And we've been eating off of that.
Yeah.
Like that's a thing you do when a team is running that shell coverage and their safeties and their corners take off and run down the field every play. You swing it to your running back and make an old guy coming off an Achilles tear like Shaq Thompson have to run him down and tackle him in the open field.
Period. He wouldn't even look at him.
Wouldn't even look at him.
So what are we talking about? The injury situation is irrelevant to the overall picture, right? Because like I said, if we're doing that, then we got to do that with Robert Hunt. If we're doing that, then we got to do that with Damian Lewis, right? Because both of those guys were out. Both of those guys have been injured in previous games, regardless of what we're talking about yesterday or we talking about the games before. And guess what your boy still did? Somebody just put it in the chat. 8 carries for, man, my comment's tripping, bro. Like, I ain't got time to fix this right now. But 8 carries, Warning Rose says 8 carries for Dowdle, 54 yards, 12 for Chuba Hubbard, and 34 yards. The favoritism from Canales is going to kill this season. And it'll also kill his opportunity to be a coach for the Carolina Panthers. Because I'm going to tell you something. In my personal opinion, if you continue seeing this, I highly doubt Dan will stand for it. He will not. This is where you're going to start getting the conversations about the potential for Brad Isaac to take over as a play caller. Those conversations are going to get a lot louder. Why? Because, look, like I said, you see it on PFF right now. 3rd in total defense. That's a balanced breakfast over there. That's what what's his name told Baby Creed. You know what I'm saying? When he was getting ready to,
that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Hey, a full breakfast over there.
That's a full breakfast over there. You see what I'm saying? So you going to have to figure out something.
When we know in the past, I mean, you can't sit up and pass the whole game against Michael Parsons, but you do have a chance if you run downhill and run right at him. I mean, when I look at these stats, man, from our running back by committee nonsense, yesterday, Dowdle finished with 8 carries for 54 yards, 6.8 rounded up to 7 yards a carry. Chuba finished with 12 carries for 34 yards, 2.8. We'll round that up to 3. The game before, the Jets game, Dowdle, 17 carries, 80 yards, 4.6 yards a carry. Chuba, 14 for 41 and 3 yards a carry. You like it. The proof's in the pudding. Like, that's my big thing. That's what it's always been.
That's what we keep trying to tell Kane, bro. Like, Kane, we're not saying the injuries don't matter. We're talking about the context of the injuries. This is the last time I'm yelling before I get you out of here. Like, you can keep commenting, but this is the last time I'm gonna talk about it. I'm not saying that the injuries don't matter. What I'm saying is that the context of the injuries. We've had injuries, and Rico has still had success with other people that you put in behind the injured people. That's what I'm saying.
And to the final nail, and with good, great, transcendent players, they make other players around them better.
Period.
With our injuries, with our substitutions, with the musical chairs that we're playing at offensive line, Rico Dowdle has shown that he is still able to get it done. That's why we're talking about the running back. Chuba may need the entire Pro Bowl offensive line to get it done, but Rico has proven
that he does not. I'm so glad you just said that, because that's what he had last year. He had Robert Hunt last year. He had Cade Mays last year. He had Damian Lewis last year, right? So, yeah, he got it done. What we're trying to say, and what Brad was just saying, is that it didn't take all that for Rico to have it, because he was still able to do it despite it.
With Josh Neiman, you know what I'm saying? With Brady Christensen, with Austin Corbett at guard. So we're talking about what's going to give the team the best chance to win.
All right, man. Whatever, dog. Y'all argue with him. Anyway, we had okay, so I'm sure we will circle back to this because we getting ready to jump off here, but we had a special guest planned. We had some issues with technical difficulties. I'm sure that myself and this guest will link at some point during the week and, you know, come back and circle back and talk about some of this stuff. So it will happen. But, man, this was goodness. I just, you know, Green Bay is going to be a tough out. That's going to be a tough game, right? So, you know, we got another situation ahead of us that's going to be, you know, very difficult. I just hope that this isn't a trend that starts. And I know we kind of got hung up on this Dave Canales and, you know, situation. Hey, you know what? I'm going to do something. I don't normally do this, but I'm going to do it right now. Because I want to hear from Double O Kane, if you got it in you. Because I really want to hear you out. I'm putting a number on the screen. Call in. 704-729-4727. You want to call in? Call in. Let me hear your piece. Right? Because I understand what you're saying. Like, I get what you're saying. And you're right. You know, Rico with the 100 yards wasn't stopping. We could say that, but we don't know definitively. But the number is on the screen if you want to call in. 704-729-4727. All right, but back to what I was saying. I hope this isn't a trend because this can get really, really bad very quickly. Because I'm not saying that Rico is the end-all, be-all. But what I am saying is that I would much rather die on the hill of seeing a guy that's been doing what he's doing continue and give me a chance than I do this. Now, we got to keep in the context, yes, Bryce wasn't playing, right? That has to be said. That can't go without saying. But this does concern me because these decisions that are being made, like, and it's been easy for him to make, you know, Dave Canales to make other decisions about other people. Like, yes, we talked about this yesterday, Brad, off camera. The Xavier Legette situation. I think the hamstring was definitely a thing, but I also think it was a little bit of a breather. You had a lot going on. You know what I'm saying? Give you a little bit of a reprieve. But this situation is, we're getting hung up on it because it could be season altering.
And it could be career altering. Think about if Pete Carroll doesn't go with Russell Wilson, do we look at him the same? Do you think Matt Flynn comes in and leads that team to a Super Bowl? Do you think it changes the complete trajectory of the Seattle Seahawks?
Yes. And you want to know why? Because when contract time comes up, not your Richard Shermans, not your, you know, Cam Chancellors or your Bobbies or your Earl Thomases, but your Michael Robinsons, your Bruce Irvings, your, well, I wouldn't say Michael Bennett, but your Cliff Avrils. Those guys are going to make different decisions based on what's happening on the team.
Mm-hmm.
Those guys who aren't going to get the big contract, right? Why does that matter for them? Because if a team like this does something historic, the Legion of Boom was there's been some really great defenses, but when you go through the history of the NFL, there's a few names that stick out. The Purple People Eaters, you know,
The
Steel Curtain, you know, what was the one that the Rams with Too Tall Jones in them? What were they called? Because they had a name too.
Well, I know while we're looking that one up, we had the Monsters of the Midway.
Yeah, Monsters of the Midway. Chicago's 80s. Yeah. You see what I'm saying? Those names stick out. We never really had one in Carolina.
Fearsome Foursome.
The Fearsome Foursome. That's it, yes. But those names stick out, right? LOB. We had Thieves Ave, right, as far as our secondary is concerned. Or they start calling us the Legion of Whom. You know what I'm saying? Back in 2013. Yeah. Hey, look, yeah. Our special guest today, he was part of the Legion of Whom. You know what I'm saying? Like, he didn't get to make it through today, but he'll, you know, like I said, we'll link up soon, but he was part of that, right? So, like, these names stick out. LOB was one of those names that stuck out. That defense does not look the same if they make a different decision. because Matt Flynn would have just been an extension, in my opinion, of Charlie Whitehurst. So yeah, you might have won 2 more games. Fantastic. Instead of being 7-9, we're 11-5. 7-9. We are 10-7. Excuse me, or 11-5 or something like that, right? But is it really going to make that big of a difference to where you have like playoff success? No, not at all. And that's the thing that you worry about in a situation like this. Regime mentioned greatest show on turf. From an offensive perspective, yes. But I'm talking more defense, right? But these guys, they stick around because they're like, man, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not missing this. Why?
Look at Detroit. Look at what Detroit's doing.
Yes.
I mean, you know what I'm saying? I mean, like, there are dudes that are choosing to resign because of that young core they've built. I mean, that's the thing. Like, the excitement from this year, a lot of it has come from the young guys. You know what I'm saying? We had a really good draft this year. Those guys are producing. This is what all goes into making a good team. And Rico's just part of that, where we blasted on the national scene behind his running. And that was, parts of those games are with mismatched offensive linemen. But, I mean, we have Bryce playing better. I mean, I remember one of the big things before we played Dallas, Mina Kimes said on ESPN, she was like, Bryce can't start from behind this game. Like, you can't have the turnovers. That's what a big part of yesterday. I mean, we spotted them 17 points.
Yeah.
Yes, it ended up being 40-9, but at that crucial juncture of the game, that was the death nail in the coffin.
Yeah. Yep. So, yep. A lot of decisions to make, man. Really tough decisions, for this front office. Again, I'm hoping against hope that they make the right decision. I mean, the writing's on the wall. The decision's there to be made, but it's up to them. Who knows what they decide, who knows the direction that they decide to go. I would hope that what we're seeing is not the beginning of a issue, because this thing, like, look, right now, it's within the fan base. It's loud on X. It's loud with the content creators. The last thing you would want this to do is become loud with the media. It's starting to slowly trickle into that. Sheena Quick asking those questions. I'm sure when the press conferences come up here in the next 30 to 40 minutes, that these will be more questions that'll be asked, right? They'll probably lead off with that. They'll lead off with the injuries and how, bad that's going to look going into the week. Whether or not Bryce is going to be 100% of, I mean, it's pretty sure they're going to roll him out there. But, like, these are questions that are going to start to happen. This is stuff that's going to be talked about ad nauseum, and it's unfortunate. It really is, because it could all be so simple. It could all be so simple. It doesn't have to be this hard.
I knew that it was all so simple.
Goodness.
Wu-Tang.
Man, we had a lot of people in the chat today, man. I appreciate y'all as normal. 168 watching between 2 platforms. We got up to, I think, around 202 or something like that. 65 likes. Make sure y'all smash that like on the way out. We appreciate all the super chats from Willie Smith, Michael, Nervash, Brandon P, all the people. And like I said, we did have a special guest lined up. We did have a little bit of a technical difficulty. Probably try to get him on later in the week. If not, have him on next Monday. Because I do want to get his perspective on this, because like I said, I don't think that there's anybody more qualified than this person based on proximity of schools that they attended and his proximity to the team itself. And so, he can speak to some of the issues that we see happening, and, hopefully, decisions are made, man. I really, one of the things that I love about the community that we have is that, like I said, players listen. It's not just us. It's other content creators, more than us, actually. There's players, current players, that link up with other content creators that, do it at a higher level than we do. So we know that they listen to what we have to say. And then also the fact that you have so many former players. Like I said, it cannot be stated enough. I know we may be going ad nauseum. I know we may be going back and forth with Double O in the chat or whatever like that. But the reality is that, look, Greg Olsen himself, Mark Schlereth before him, they're all saying the same things. Hey, man, if you got a hot hand, let it go. And you can't refute what guys like that are saying that have literally lived this and been around it. It's one thing for some schmuck like me to get online and scream about it, who's never played in the NFL, who's not played any organized college football or anything like that. But I'm only going off of what I'm seeing them say because of what my own eyes are telling me. And if they're lining up with what they're saying, then yeah, of course, I'm doubling down on that, right? So this is something that has to change. But either way, Brad, take us out of here, man.
Well, we talked about last week, man, when you got everybody's talked about, we got double trouble again. It is, guys talking about the super trap, that it was, good to have these problems, to have, more running backs than, what to do with. But again, in those years, the two things, one being that one of those running backs, whether it was Stephen Davis, Deshaun Foster, Nick Goins, D'Angelo Williams, Jonathan Stewart, we always, even Deontay Foreman and Chuba, you always had a guy carrying the majority of the weight, and then another guy to spell him. If that guy got off while he was trying to spell the lead back, then so be it. But this, and it was in the chat, this stringent, your series, his series, your series, his series nonsense, any competent organization, and that's what we saw yesterday, it would have been great if the Bills would have been like, you know what? Let's just take James Cook out and give, Clay Davis a few carries and just let him get a series. That would have been great for us because the way that Cook was playing. But they didn't do that because competent organizations and competent coaches don't do that.
Right.
So even when you do your weird, your turn, his turn, your turn, his turn nonsense, when Rico busts out a 30-yard run, when Rico gets in his groove and you are starting to struggle to move the ball, you keep giving it to the bell cow and you let that guy get in a rhythm and you ride the hot hand. We saw that with we saw that with Jonathan Stewart and D'Angelo Williams. When it came time as D'Angelo began to decline, we allowed the hot hand, whoever it was that game, to get going and to get more of the carries.
Yeah.
If anything, do that. But this nonsense has got to stop of the, running back platoon alternating series, because what you do end up is those situations where Andy had a fumble, so Rico didn't get that series. Andy throws the interception, so Rico's series is cut short that time.
Yeah.
And so you end up with him getting the short end of the stick.
I forgot about the fumble one. How do we know that Rico's stat line don't turn into 70 or 80 yards? Then it looks
exactly. Rico had as many tackles as carries in the second half.
Yeah, and then it looks even worse.
That's about the saddest shit I've seen all season.
Yeah. Yep. All right, man. So look, we appreciate y'all yet again, all the super chats that we got. Not gonna hang my head too much. We get Bryce back this week. Prayerfully, Cade Mays will be able to play. I think that connection is very important. And then, I guess we'll figure out what Dave Canales is choosing to do with this running back situation. And it's a mess, y'all. It's a mess. But
definitely be a weird hill to die on.
Yeah, a weird hill to die on. But, hey, man, my posture. You get fired over something that you should have been doing different. You know what my response to that is? See y'all next week. Head up, head up.